Joining us today are distinguished members of the New York State Legislature. State Senator Robert Jackson, Chair of the State Pensions and Civil Service Committee. Assemblywoman Pharra Souffrant-Forrest, Chair of the Assembly Task Force on New Americans. Assemblywoman Marcela Montañez, member of the Committee on Banks. They are all tireless advocates for a more just and humane society, and their support makes today's training possible. My name is Guillermo Martinez, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy at the Rockefeller Institute of Government. The Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy seeks to advance the economic, social, and political integration of foreign-born New York and to promote responsive policies and practices. We focus on three main objectives: compile knowledge, expand the knowledge, and diffuse the knowledge. Today's presentation compiles all these efforts and is part of our ongoing work. It is our hope that the information that will be shared today will help you in your work as staff to policymakers and strengthen your office work on related matters. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you an icon of all efforts to improve our education system and on countless other public policy fronts, Senator Robert Jackson.
Good afternoon, everyone. How you doing? Well, how's everyone on Zoom doing? You doing okay?
Yes, we did good.
So welcome to this important training on this first of its kind tool for immigration integration. So thank you to everyone for being here, both in person and on Zoom, and for your dedication to this work. A special thanks to the Rockefeller Institute for developing this important tool for providing today's training. As legislators and staff, we definitely know how critical it is to have the right data to shape effective policy and programs. And this tool will help us better serve New York State's immigration population, allowing us to deepen our understanding of the challenges faced by immigrant communities and work towards our inclusive, equitable policies across New York State. New York has always been a place where immigrants come to build a better life. And you may say, how do you know that, Jackson? Well, did you ever immigrate here? Well, my wife did. I met her in college, and I brought my brother-in-law here when he was 19, and now he's 64. So I know my family is all part of that. And so New York has always been a place where immigrants come to build a better life, with over 1/3 of New York City residents and nearly 1/4 of New York State residents being foreign-born. And it is our responsibility to ensure New York continues to welcome immigrants with open arms and hugs, and to ensure that policies reflect the diversity and strength of our state. The New York State Legislature has been at the forefront of ensuring that New York remains a welcoming place for immigrants, including the passage of the Green Light Law in 2019, which allows undocumented immigrants to obtain driver's licenses, allocating $2.1 billion for Excluded Workers Fund in the 2021-22 budget, providing financial relief to workers who were excluded from the federal COVID-19 aid, and allocating $2.4 billion in the 24-25 state budget to support migrants arriving in New York City. In the legislature, we continue to push for policies that support immigrant communities, such as Coverage for All Act, that's Senate Bill S 2237B, which would expand the New York Essential Plan to cover income-eligible individuals. And two of my bills, S 9092 and 9093, which would require continuing education for teachers relating to immigrant-focused trauma-informed practices, and for SUNY and CUNY to develop education programs for teachers, immigrant origin students. This immigration integration tool will help us continue to craft impactful policies like these. And so I'm pleased to introduce my colleague in the New York State Assemblymember Forrest, who is a tireless advocate for making sure New York remains an inclusive place where our immigrant community are supported and loved. Assemblymember.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for being here both on Zoom and in person. I'd like to thank my brother, Senator Jackson, for hosting this training along with me. I am Assemblymember Pharra Souffrant-Forrest, Chair of the Assembly Task Force on New American. And I am excited to kick off this training here to see how we as policymakers can use a new powerful tool that my friends over at the Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy. We know that New York has always been a state of immigrants. People from every corner of the world have come here to seek opportunity, safety, and a better life. The immigrants who come here, like my family, who we've become neighbors, are vital to the strength and the vibrancy of this here state. They bring with them their skills, culture, dreams, contributing to everything that makes New York such a dynamic place to live and be. But we also know that too often our immigrant communities face barriers, whether it's difficulty accessing services, securing affordable housing, finding stable work, or overcoming language barriers. That's why the work we are doing today is so important. As policymakers, we have the ability and the responsibility to ensure that our immigrant populations have the resources they need to succeed. And with the right data in hand, we can better understand the challenges these communities face and create opportunities for them to flourish. This new data tool is a game changer. Let me be real, it's hot stuff, okay? It gives us the ability to pinpoint where gaps exist, whether it's in healthcare, education, unemployment, or housing, and it provides us the insight to develop tailored solutions to address the specific needs of the immigrant population across the state, locale to locality. From Brooklyn to Buffalo, we can now identify trends, track progress, and see in real time what is working and what needs to change. But beyond the data, let me remind you about the numbers, but really about the people behind those numbers. These are mothers, fathers, workers, students, and children, all striving for the same goals we want for ourselves and our families: stability, safety, and a safe, dignified life. When we use this tool effectively, we're changing lives, and we're helping ensure that New York remains a place where everyone, no matter where they come from, can call it home. So thank you again for being here and for your commitment to this work. I am confident that together we can make New York a stronger, more inclusive, and more equitable home for all. So let's get started. Now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you my friend, Dr. Refki, the brilliant Executive Director of the Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy. Dr. Refki.
So kind. Thank you, Assemblymember-Forrest, Senator Jackson. Your visionary leadership and your inclusive vision is really so much appreciated by us. This work wouldn't exist without your leadership and without your believing in it and making sure that it sees the light of day. So we're really happy to share with you this comprehensive tool that we've created to compile the data. And again, as Assemblymember-Forrest said, to make sure that in New York, we understand who lives in our backyard, how are they dealing with the integration puzzle, and how are communities faring in integrating foreign-born New Yorkers in their midst. So I'm not going to repeat the mission. My colleague Guillermo has already told you about the Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy. Our sole mission is New York State, and it is not, New Jersey or California. It's focused primarily and exclusively on New York State and on advancing the mission of integration of foreign-born New Yorkers. So we compile and expand and diffuse the knowledge, and we believe, as our leaders here have really so eloquently told us, that data informs policies and informs practices. So that's why what is the impetus behind this work. So measuring integration, this is the premise that this work has come to light. We really believe that we need to measure integration of foreign-born New Yorkers, because what is measured gets done, what gets measured gets done, what gets measured gets managed, and what gets measured gets improved. And so we really need to understand who is successfully being integrated and who is not. And what can we do as policy makers and policy implementers, policy influencers, and as practitioners to advance the integration goal. So we really believe in a social justice orientation where we have to have equal access to opportunities in New York State for everyone. And so what we do here in this work is trying to identify differences in outcomes between foreign-born and native-born. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, there are people waiting to be admitted, and I did not see them. Oh, apologies about that. So again, what we are trying to do here is identify differences between these two populations, foreign-born and native-born. Because if there are differences that are preventable, then we can do something about them as practitioners, as policymakers. And so these disparities can be prevented if they are due to social identities, if they are due to English proficiency, if they are due to educational attainment, then we can do something about it as a society to address them. So, and integration happens when we narrow the gap between in outcomes between the foreign-born and the foreign-born, native-born, and really prevent those preventable differences between these two populations. So, so the Data Gateway has 5 main research questions that we focused on. We wanted to understand who are the foreign-born residents of New York State. Where do they live? Which county? Which region? What languages they speak? Do they speak English or not? And so what is their demographic profile? The second question is, what is the state of their integration, both on the economic aspect, social, and political/civic aspects? And we wanted to understand how each county is faring in terms of performance in integrating foreign-born in their midst. As Assemblymember said, we have a responsibility as government, as practitioners, to integrate foreign-born. So this effort really is trying to understand how each county is performing in terms of integrating those residents in their midst by creating a scorecard for each of the counties, for each of the region, on their performance in integrating immigrants. Number 4 is, how is the integration infrastructure or the ecosystem look like? So those service providers that are across the state, how does that look like? Where are the gaps? And how can immigrants access those services. And number 5 is, of course, the policy and the practice implications that we are all interested in understanding. And please interrupt me if you have any questions while we're going. This is pretty, informal, hopefully. So we use 2 kinds of data. We use secondary data that already exists and that are being compiled and gathered by other people. So American Community Survey data, that's the census data, the US Census. Every year there is an effort to collect data from each community. Some communities are we don't have enough data, and that's part of the limitations of the data. Other governmental entities also collect secondary data that we use in our analysis. We use it. We really analyze this data and trying to make sense of it. And then private and nonprofit institutions. But we also collect primary data. We are in the midst of really collecting very important data on the social integration of foreign-born New Yorkers. I will talk more about that a little bit later. We collect data from government officials, service providers, and also from public documents as well. So here's the data gateway, and after we go through this brief presentation, we'll jump into the website and show you the website itself. But it's very simple address here, nyimmigrants.org. And I would really advise that you use a desktop instead of a mobile phone because it's not really mobile friendly right now. It doesn't show everything because it's extensive amount of data that you need to map. So the data gateway, again, has those 5 different research questions. So they're organized based on those 5 different questions. So the first questions are, who are the foreign-born New Yorkers? Where do they live? And what is their demographic profile? And so there are 3 assumptions that we adopted when we created this data. And when we analyzed this data. The first assumption is that foreign-born New Yorkers are very diverse. There are, in New York City itself, there is more than 150 languages spoken. So the countries are very different. The ethnic demographic is very different. So we really need to disaggregate the data as much as possible. That's what we hear from practitioners and providers all the time. We don't have disaggregated data. When you lump Asians, for example, all in one category, that does not tell us anything because these are incredibly diverse communities. So we need to really disaggregate and drill down in each communities. The assumption 2 is that they change across time and across space. Geography matters. Where you live as a foreign-born matters, but also that changes with time. If you studied history of migration, you'll know that everything has been changing over time. So we need to look across time and across space. The assumption 3 is that we talked about the preventable differences, and we really need to level the playing field and look at outcomes, but compare by those social forces that affect outcomes of foreign-born New Yorkers: gender, race, nativity status, and the intersections of those together really shape outcomes across space and time. So we use those assumptions to look at the data and mine the data from the US Census, from the American Community Survey. So if you click on the demographics of immigrant New Yorkers, you'll see that this page come up, and it will show you by region, the 10 regions of New York. It will show foreign-born by region, by gender, by English proficiency, and by country of origin. Not only that, but if you set the parameters here, you'll have 10 years worth of data from 2012 to 2021. So, and you also can look at all educational levels or filter by 3 different educational levels: high school diploma, associate degree, or college bachelor's degree or more. And you can also look at English proficiency, whether they're English proficient or not. And so you'll be able to tell really what productive assets people bring and what do they have. So here's another two different pages. It shows here by region. And here also it shows you the, if you set it, the educational parameters, and here by English proficiency. And we'll go to the site and show you how this all works, but just giving you an overview before we go on to the website. If you click here, you can download data files. If you click here, you can download fact sheets by race and ethnicity. So we have fact sheets for foreign-born from Europe, fact sheets for foreign-born from Latin America, from Africa, and from Asia. And so if you click on the data files, you can download Excel files by these data, foreign-born and native-born, the difference between foreign-born and native-born numbers, countries of origin by county. You can see the languages spoken. These are all 2021 data. English proficiency, foreign-born by educational attainment, and by age, by employment sector, where they are employed, and by poverty. And so here's a picture of one of the fact sheets that you can download that gives you a demographic profile about where they come from. And then we go to the state of integration, the second tab here. And the second tab really asks, what is the state of integration? Economic, social, and civic political. Someone asked one time, so they are integrated, right? And we say, it's much more nuanced than just saying yes or no, right? And so you really need to look at, again, many factors and where they live. So if you click on economic integration, this is what you see here. This is the definition of integration. It's the incorporation, the full inclusion of foreign-born New Yorkers. And we say we reach the point of integration when we have equal outcomes, when we have narrowing of the gaps between foreign-born and native-born. Economic integration, here are the indicators of what we mean by full incorporation of foreign-born New Yorkers into the economic fabric. Unemployment, income, poverty, working poor, full-time work, home ownership, and rent burden. These are the 7 indicators. Social integration, we use these indicators to account for what we mean by social integration: sense of belonging, connectedness, support, access, and navigational ease. Context of reception, how are they feeling that reception, especially at this time that of our nation's history where we have very anti-immigrant rhetoric in the public, in the national discourse. English language proficiency, and mental well-being. Civic and political integration, we have these indicators that we are looking at. So the state of integration. This is what occupied our efforts in the first year of the Institute. We looked at the economic dimension, and we relied on the American Community Survey. Again, the 7 indicators that we talked about, that when put together, they account for what we mean by economic integration. The data is disaggregated by educational attainment, 3 levels of education: high school diploma, high school diploma holders, and last, associate degree holders, college degree holders. And then the data is from 2012 to 2021. Nativity, gender, race, English proficiency, native, nativity and race, nativity, race, and gender. This means that everything you see here, outcomes are compared to account and isolate the impact of nativity status, the impact of gender, the impact of race, the impact of being English proficient or not, the impact of nativity and race when they intersect. We know that when you have 2 social identities that make you marginalized in society, that the intensity, or there's a double disadvantage. And nativity, race, and gender. So all the outcomes are really based on comparison between two groups. When you look at nativity, race, and gender, for example, we're comparing the outcome of foreign-born women of color with native-born white men. And that means that we're isolating the forces of nativity, race, and gender. That we say these are preventable differences that need to be the focus of interventions, of practice, and policy. So here is a page from the portal, and you have these comparisons. Again, if you click on one of them, it will take you to that comparison. So here is what you see when you compare between foreign-born and native-born New Yorkers. This is one page. It maps out within each county of New York State the outcomes of comparison of foreign-born New Yorkers and native-born New Yorkers on poverty. And if you see here, again, you have 10 years worth of data. You can set the parameters on the year that you'd like. All regions, or you want to see just one county or one area, one region. And here is also the county and the educational attainment. If you click on comparison, that's what you see. If you click on trends, you'll see the chart. But here, also, it shows you the barometer here. Every time you come closer to the red area, that means that foreign-born are doing a lot worse than native-born. If you go to the blue part, it means that they are doing doing better. So this is poverty, and you go here, this is unemployment. Again, you see here the differences in unemployment between foreign-born and native-born and poverty. And again, the comparison shows you the barometer, the years that you want to set. This is set to 2021, all regions, and the county is all. The education is all, but you can set the parameters there the way you want it. Again, if you press on trends, you see the trends in the last 10 years of data. All right, so moving right along, we go to social integration. There is so much data right here that is mapped along each of the 7 indicators for each of those comparison groups to account for what is the impact of being a foreign-born in New York State? What is the impact of being foreign-born of color in New York State? What is the impact of being foreign-born woman of color? And what is the impact of being foreign-born a person of color compared to a person who foreign-born white person? So all of these comparisons really allow us to, as Assemblymember Forrest said, to pinpoint where the disparities are, where the differences in outcomes are. This allows us to tailor our interventions, tailor our policies to certain people who are experiencing most disparities, and not just throw money at the wall and hope that it will stay. Yeah. So if you look here at social integration, this is a very exciting new effort that we are currently working on. And this is how we define social integration. It's the ability of the foreign-born New Yorkers to feel a sense of belonging, to be able to navigate their environment, be able to find a job, be able to go to a doctor, and find support and connectedness within their communities, not feel isolated or alienated, feel that they are welcomed in their communities, context of reception. What are their perceptions in terms of mental well-being? Mental health is incredibly important. We all know that after COVID, we have a heightened sense of awareness of the need for mental health care. And so we're resilience, self-concept, and multicultural orientation. This is what the research literature tell us about the sense of being socially integrated, have a sense of well-being, and feeling that you are part of the community. So what we are doing here is, and we're in the midst of collecting new data that is currently does not exist anywhere. We are partnering with 10 different organizations in every region of New York State, although North Country, we're still struggling to find an organization there that would be good to partner with. And they are surveying their service recipients to get their perception on these elements. And we know that it's incredibly important to be socially integrated, because if you don't, everything else will be affected. Your economic integration will be affected, your civic integration will be affected, and it's important that we create that social cohesion in our communities. So that data will really tell us who is feeling isolated in each of our regions, in each of our communities, in each of our counties. So interventions can create some sense of welcoming environment, narrowing the distance between foreign-born and native-born. We know that when the distance becomes really very large, that there is a stereotyping happening on both sides. And so whenever we narrow that distance, we're in much better shape. So the integration scorecard, again, go back to what Assemblyman Forrest said, Forrest said, that really we are looking at how are the counties performing in integrating foreign-born in their midst. So we are providing an integration scorecard for each county in your state to account for their success in integrating immigrants. So what we're doing here is that we're providing a score to each region and each county, a rank. Where do they rank around other counties and around other regions? And then a trend analysis, so that they see where what have they been doing in the last 10 years? Did their rank go down or up? But the score is calculated based on those 7 indicators that we talked about: poverty, income, unemployment, working poor, full-time work, rent burden, and home ownership. Between foreign-born and native-born, again, it's a comparison to understand the differences, the disparities. But we calculate a standardized score for each region by averaging across these indicators, and by creating one numerical score that tells us the comparison between native-born and foreign-born, and really the higher scores, the higher index scores, means that they're doing well. Foreign-born doing well. The less or the lower the score means that they're not doing well, and that the disparities are large in those regions. So we'll show you how that is expressed in the portal. Again, you see here the regions, the 10 regions. You can again use all years. This gives you the scores for the last 10 years, but you can adjust by year. You can adjust by education. You can adjust by English proficiency, and look at the scores of how each region is doing. This is a chart that shows us, again, how are they doing? And that is the index score. That is the scorecard. So you see here, Central New York is doing the worst in terms of year 2021 for all English proficient, for all educational levels. The score here is really at the negative end. So is New York City and Western New York. Oh, go ahead.
Then you can use the little brackets on the side to see exactly why it's exactly happening.
So for now, we don't account for the causes, but if you again adjust for English proficiency in education, you might be able to explain why, but it's still anecdotal. Yeah. But it's a comparison between native-born and foreign-born. And I'll show you in the, once we get to the site. This is the integration infrastructure that we talked about. And again, it's really a mapping of immigrant services across New York State. If you are foreign-born yourself and you want to know where English language learning programs are in your neighborhood, you can adjust 5 miles or less from you and try to know if there are any service providers, get the location, the directions to this service. If you are a planner or a policymaker or advocate, you can see where the gaps are across the state, where there are gaps in the service ecosystem, and that becomes really important. So here are the ones that we mapped: legal services, English language learning, workforce development, business development, community-based organization. And we've used GIS to do so. You can again set the address here, and you can say 5 miles or less and try to know if you have an English language learning program in your area. And we get to the final number 4, policy and practice implications. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened here. But in here, in this tab, you'll see all the research briefs that we have, the highlights of some of the data and the recommendations that we are making to policy and practice. This is one of the documents that you see, and this one looks at the intersections of place with English proficiency and educational attainment, and how that shape foreign-born New Yorkers' economic outcomes. And you'll see here regional charts that compare outcomes who have all English proficiency and educational attainment, but here are the ones that are have high English proficiency and high educational attainment compared to the ones who are low educational attainment and low English proficiency. And you see here a comparison of regions. Each of those are the region. Also, you'll see regional reports here on our site that analyzes the data and provided for each of the regions of New York State. And so that is a very brief overview of our portal, but now we want to get into the portal itself. And it's again nyimmigrants.org. Here's, oops, I think I need to stop share. Apologies for that. One of those things that you always forget about Zoom. Have to share again. Stop share and then share a different screen. There you go. Apologies. There you go. So this is what you saw in the slides. You go here, immigrant New Yorkers. These are the demographics. And again, you can set here the time, 10 years worth of data, educational attainment. You pull down the menu here, you have 3 levels of educational attainment, English proficiency, either proficient or not. So if I want to look at, again, associate's degree or some college, and I want to see those who are not proficient in 2021, I set the parameters there and it gives me the data, the native born and the foreign born. But again, if you download here, download data files, and if you go down, you'll see the fact sheets. But if I want to see foreign born by origin, I press on that and it gives me by region, where they come from. And then if you want really more disaggregation by Asians, you go to the download files where you have, if I go here, download files, country of origin in New York State. Again, I'll have to stop, but again, you get the point. You'll see from each country of origin where they are from and what language they speak. So it's pretty detailed. Just go here. And if you press on the logo, it takes you back. State of integration, economic integration, but you get the point there. If I press on economic integration, I don't want to bore you to death here, but there you go. Measuring the economic integration. If I want to compare going to native born and foreign born, I'll press on that first comparison. It shows me the 7 indicators. So the idea is to really keep going, scrolling down. First, you see the income differences. You see the differences in poverty. You see the differences in unemployment. And it's all mapped on New York State map. Full-time work, working poor, home ownership, and rent burden. So you get the point there. I'm just going to show you the scorecard, and then I'm going to stop and have you guys ask questions. Here's the scorecard, which is a very, very useful tool to understand where does your neighborhood, your county, your region compare to other regions, to other counties. How are you doing in terms of integrating immigrants along those 7 indicators? So the internet here is a little.
A little is.
What?
The internet.
Shame.
It's coming along. We have a question, and Zachary Oslo. Please unmute yourself, Zachary, and ask your question.
My name is Zachary Osolo, as you've seen displayed on the screen.
Can you please raise your voice, Zachary, because we can't hear you very well.
My name is Zachary Osolo. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, my name is Zachary Osolo, and I'm based here in Central New York. I help highly skilled immigrants and refugees to be able to find jobs within their field of study. I'm really curious about the issue that you've raised in terms of English, and I really appreciate the data that you have here. But my question is, do you happen to identify specific stakeholders who this can be presented to? Because we find a situation, me, myself, I'm an immigrant, we find a situation where native borns, maybe probably they don't have a full understanding of what is really coming as a shortcoming. Who do we take this data to so that they can be able to take measures to start and programs that can be able to change the circumstance that we're seeing? Because I'm really intentional in making Central New York to be a welcoming community. Secondly, I like the question, why is this happen? If this can also be addressed in the data, it could be really impactful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zachary. And to the question of the workforce development system in New York State, this is something that we're very, very interested in. And what we have heard from a lot of stakeholders, and that the problem is we have incredible fragmentation and lack of coordination. And so there is a new initiative that the Institute is part of that is called Setting Up for Success. And it is going to be funded by the Office for Temporary and Disability Assistance. What we are going to be doing is issue a request for proposal to community colleges across the state, SUNY and CUNY, and also private institutions to recruit refugees, asylees, and other forcibly displaced students to their institutions and offer continuing education. But also, one of the primary vision of setting up for success, or SUFS as we call it, is to integrate that fragmentation that exists, to bring these stakeholders together and create seamless connections. So we require that all of these community colleges partner with community-based organizations, refugee resettlement agencies, and immigrant serving organizations, so that they recruit the population and bring them to the institute. The funding will cover their tuition and their expenses. It will also provide case management and address what we know is the social determinants of success. We know that it's not just enough to address the academic needs, but it's also equally important to address those barriers that interfere with the ability of foreign-born New Yorkers to succeed, to be able to take on continuing education. So food insecurity, housing insecurity, a whole gamut of barriers that exist in meeting basic needs, legal services. And so that is one item that we're really hoping to accomplish, is to create a more integrated system where the nonprofit organizations work with service providers, and where we are really leveraging resources that exist already in the ground, and not just creating new organizations and new resources and new providing organizations that are really duplicating effort and not really strategically addressing workforce needs. But also with foreign-born New Yorkers, we know that there is a need for proactive engagement, proactive recruitment. As you well know, Zachary, that we really need to not wait until they come to us, but we go to them and recruit them proactively to the workforce development and continuing education element. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Samuel.
I
Thank
also wanted to make a note that even when we look at New York City, we have an influx of a lot of Africans, French speaking. The GED is still only offered, or task, whatever they call it now, in English and Spanish. And it just,
Yeah.
that's it. That should change.
Yeah.
We should make that.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Yeah, and we can tell you, we did a study during COVID with the foreign-born population, not just in New York, but around the country, not as part of the institute, but as part of the University at Albany. And we looked at how this population get their information. We all know that there was one Spanish-speaking hotline in New York to provide information about COVID. But we know that there are also 149 other languages that were left out. And so we asked these populations, these foreign-born residents, where did they get their information from? And we know that they are getting their information from the internet, from social media, which may not be reliable or accurate information. And so the source of information where as a government, we said, okay, Spanish speaking are the highest population in New York State will provide a Spanish speaking hotline. But in upstate New York, and that's why we have these data files there, Spanish is not the first language. We have Asians that are really many languages that are supersede Spanish in upstate New York. So in a state of crisis, when population New York residents do not have access to that information, what do? They're going to go to global or whatever information they find in a global crisis and find, these prevention and vaccination and all these information from other sources. So it's very important to really understand who lives in our backyard and what their needs are, especially in a disaster or crisis. So I'll stop here and see if you have any other questions. I hope that was pretty comprehensive for you. There is so much going on here. I really hope you spend time looking at those comparative analyses because it's really enlightening. And the integration scorecard, because it's very useful to know, to create some healthy competition between the regions and really advance integration at the local level. I know there's a chat conversation, so if you have included any questions in the chat, I really urge you to unmute yourself and speak to us because we can't see. Okay, so David Espinoza?
Yes,
David.
I have a question. I might be off base a little bit. I think I recall you saying that the data that's here is from 2021. Is that correct?
So we have data from 2012 every year until 2021.
Okay.
So we have
So-
10 years worth of data there.
I am at a nonprofit CBO part of SUNY UCOD, and we teach ESL, computer literacy, career and technical education, and in this particular lab, I have a lot of asylum seekers here in Brooklyn, and they finish their ESL, they get their work authorization, I help them find jobs through the DOL, New York City DOL website, and anything else to help advance their immigration status. Is there any way, or is this a way for us to also add their data, even though they're more current than 2021, or is that just going to be captured at some other time during a census?
Yeah, so the data that you see here, David, is all from the American Community Survey.
Okay.
They're all from the census.
Okay.
Data on the ground will be collecting data as we roll out the setting up for success that I talked about.
Okay.
Right now, it is the eligible population are refugees and asylees and all other forcibly displaced population because the funding is from the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. These are the people who are eligible. We hope that we will have community colleges within each of the regions of New York State working with their nonprofit and key stakeholders, and we'll collect this data because we're evaluating that model. So we'll be collecting the data. We are also seeking more funding to cover the new arrivals, the people who are not refugees and asylees or forcibly displaced, but those who have arrived in the last couple of years. So this, we have to get private funding, and we're engaging private funders in this effort. And there's a lot of interest in funding this population and increasing their employability in our economy. Because as we know, there's a large shortage. We are facing a demographic issue here, and there's a large shortage in the workforce. And so we need them. And so we will definitely keep working on collecting that data and expanding. So this is a working portal. As you see here, it's not done. Even with the economics integration, what we are doing now is drilling down even further to each population by race, by ethnicity, and trying to understand more and more what is happening. So here we're going from the broad to the very specific to identify population that need that help. So having said that, we're really, this is expected to expand and be refined as we move forward. So hopefully that data, again, the primary data that we don't have access to right now is going to be collected in that effort.
Thank you.
We had another hand up. Please go ahead. I believe it's MTH Ian.
Yes, I just want to start by saying thank you for this presentation. My name is Mohammed Cham, and I work for a nonprofit organization called Interface Work. And we are overseeing a program called Professional Pathway Program. So it is a state program. And the responsibility of this program is to facilitate the integration of immigrants and new Americans within the workforce development here in Central New York. So the question I have today is some of the insight that we have received since the implementation of our program is that we realize that immigrants and refugees are always left behind, and there is a pervasive sense of injustice within our system. So recently, we have created a workforce development initiative in trying to address those barriers and making sure that we have a smooth integration of immigrants and refugees within Central New York. So my question to you is, based on the policy and practices and even the information that we have right now, how do you feel? What do you think is a gap? What now is standing in between immigrants and refugees to be able to be economically integrated within our workforce system?
Very good question, Mohammed. This is the question that really we grapple with every day at the Institute. And so there is a number of problems, and we'll be issuing a policy brief that compiles, it is ready, and it's in the final publication stage. It compiles the lessons we learned from 1 year of listening to experts, practitioners, and immigrants themselves who are experiencing the problem about economic integration. And we identified many barriers that exist in the system, bottlenecks that exist that hinder the ability of foreign-born New Yorkers to integrate, from access to information to protectionism and the inability to get re-credentialed and re-licensed because you come from a country of origin where the educational system is not valued. So you can be very highly educated in your country of origin, you don't have the English language, and then you're experiencing a phenomenon that we call unskilling, or underskilling, where you are working in jobs that not commensurate with your experience and talents. Refugees in particular face a very, very structural barrier, where when they come to this country, there is incredible pressure on the nonprofit to provide them with self-sustainability, because that's a measure of their success. So they push them into jobs that are survival jobs, instead of really allowing them to be able to calibrate their talents and skills and find jobs that utilize their talents. And that's a brain waste. That affects all of us, because we're really not leveraging the potential of these talents. So there are a number of barriers, obviously financial constraints at the micro, organizational, and the macro level. There's protectionism. There is the fragmentation that we talked about, and lack of data. Lack of data that we're trying to do something about here, that informs how we allocate resources and how we address the problems. But there are really incredible barriers that foreign-born face, that whether they are entrepreneurs or coming from their country as a refugee, or whether they are coming with a high degree, or whether they're trying to access the higher education system, the lack of information, because it's a completely different system. If you're an entrepreneur here, you don't understand, capital. And I mean, you don't understand the credit system. You don't have the same system in your country of origin. And it's so hard to find access to resources because you don't have assets that the banks will give you loans for. So there are incredible resources, and everyone loses when these phenomena are allowed to to go unaddressed. So I don't know whether that answers your question, but I would definitely, if you email us, would be happy to make sure you get a copy of our policy brief that really compiles all of these barriers and provide policy implications and policy recommendations that came out from, doing a lot of webinars, conversations, podcasts with experts, practitioners, policymakers, immigrants themselves who are experiencing the problem. So we're happy to send you that. But there's a lot of work that still needs to be done at the policy level, at the practice level, to integrate, coordinate, reach out, and really have an asset-based approach to leveraging the talents of immigrants rather than seeing them as a burden or as people who are taxing the system. Because again, the data tells us otherwise, that they are incredible resource. Any other questions?
I ask a question.
Senator Jackson.
I see quite a number of recent arrivals go to the quick, how they can make some money fast. For example, Ubering, delivery, in order to survive
Yes.
right now. And then also, everyone has family members abroad,
Mhm.
and they send money home to relatives
Yeah.
for survival.
Yes.
And I think that that's what people look at, how I can, knowing how sometimes it takes so long to get a legal permission to work from the government.
Yes.
They gotta work, period. And
Mhm.
even, no matter what you think about the mayor constantly said that people need permission to work.
Right.
And that's so important, knowing that that's the way it is. You
Mhm.
need to be able to hopefully earn a little bit money to live somewhere, even with other people from the same country or otherwise, just partner together to survive.
Yes.
And then to, think about their family members, even if they're sending $50 or $100 per month to relatives, that's so important as far as the minimum survival that people are doing. And I think that that's what people are doing. Obviously, if you have a degree, I've heard people say, I know people that have a doctor's degree
Mhm.
and they're driving a cab.
Yes. Yes.
So degrees are one thing and media survival is another.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why we need those bridging programs that really say, here are the skills and talents, how we can help you calibrate these talents and skills and get into the field that you are trained to work in instead of working survival jobs. That everyone benefits from that. You see the shortages in the healthcare system. And we talk about that, all the time. The shortages, the many physicians who come from abroad but are unable to recertify and get re-credentialed here in the country, and the barriers they face to do that. And so how can we as a society say these are talents we need, the economy needs? How can we create bridging programs to help these people get into that system and benefit everybody instead of Ubering or, because the pressures to survive are great. The new arrivals over and over again, the one thing they needed was to get a job. We got a job, we need a job. And then work authorization, but there is no information, there's no attempt to match the skills and talents and use them in the workforce to fill gaps that we already have in the system, in the workforce system, that is creating really inefficiencies. So,
is there any measurement as to whether or not individuals that are coming clearly can communicate in English versus their primary language? And is that a burden of holding someone obviously back where the primary language is spoken in English,
Yes,
but I don't speak English, but I'm a doctor,
right,
say, for example.
yeah, yeah.
And I guess that they would have to then move more towards where, for example, the area where that language is spoken to
Right.
possibly
Right.
get a better opportunity there.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, English language is huge, but it's the barriers transcend language. You know, if I have to survive and earn, not just for me and my family here, but send money home, you know, imagine where is the time that I'll have to go and learn English or improve my English? It's just incredible. We have to create structures that allow that. How can we create it? I think community colleges are very, very important part of the system. And they can provide that. And that's what we're doing with setting up for success. We're testing and piloting this model where we say, you know, you are a new arrival. What if we, you know, supported you with tuition, with case management, so that we address the basic needs. We create some, you know, economic security and help you become a contributor, economic contributor in ways that leverage your skills. That is what we need in order to make this happen. But English language is enormous. But it's not just English language. I know people who are doctors from their physicians and come and they take the exams and the 3 steps of becoming re-licensed in the US, they were practicing in their home country. English was not the barrier. What the barrier was to get a residency. You know, and there's a lot of bias. Even though they passed all their exams and they were successful, there's a lot of bias. And this person that I personally know could not be matched because she came from a country that was, you know, there is a lot of bias that
You said bias, just, you know.
a preference for someone who's native born or preference for someone who is educated in the US. So even though there is proof that she is capable, she's done all 3 steps and ready, but residency becomes a residency matching for 2 years. She can get residency and that's it, you know? So she's kicked out of the system. And so, Guillermo and I were talking to stakeholders, and we know there are pathways that transcends the residency if you can prove you are eligible. But even those pathways there's no information about them. They're kept as a hidden secret. And I don't know, Guillermo, if you want to add anything to that. I know that this is a passion of yours.
Thank you for your question, Senator Jackson. Yeah, there's a lot of work in these groups, advocacy groups, working behind trying to move the state on issues of professional licensing and certification of healthcare professionals. New York State's really kind of behind the 8 ball on some of this. We have like 11 states that are poaching immigrant talent because it's easier to go to those states and find work. Even Florida is allowing foreign trained physicians who have already worked under an American physician, American trained physician, to practice on their own. And some other states have done the same thing because they've seen a huge doctor shortage. So there's a bill, it's called the Empire State Licensing Act. It was introduced by Senator Rivera and Assemblywoman Cruz. It's going to need some fine tuning because it encompasses dozens of licensure and certification pieces of general law and executive law. So it needs to be refined a little bit, but that's really like the only hope right now in terms of legislation to deal with this issue that you're mentioning, and quickly moving these foreign trained healthcare professionals into the workplace.
And we have shortages in nursing. There are predictions that there are some sectors and fields that won't survive without an infusion of new workers because we have a population that is aging, we have low birth weight, and we need, more talents to be infused in the workplace. So, but we also need, solutions that make it possible for people to be directed in the right, their skills leveraged. So, yeah. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Senator, for you. Any other questions online? All right, so there are no more questions. Thank you so much again for being here, Senator Jackson, for convening this important event. And please call on us. This institute is for your benefit. You are our primary audience. So we're really hoping to hear from you. What is it that we can do that would help you in your work? So we're created to inform your work. We're created by you to inform your work. So it's important that we hear from you. How can we improve? What elements of research, data, analysis, policy, or otherwise that you need, the evaluation that you need to make better decisions in the work that you do? So it's really important that we remain in touch with you and communicate together about this. Thank you so much.